Rain poured down on Chicago like a grey curtain, turning the streets into rivers, shimmering with neon light. In a dark corner of the Lower West Side, the rusty Anchor Bar was nestled among mottled red brick buildings. Inside, the smell of stale beer and cigarettes clung together, drowning out the sound of the screaming rain outside. Ryan Holt, a man in his 30s with messy hair and eyes as sharp as a razor's edge, stood behind the bar, wiping a glass with slow, almost mechanical movements. His worn-out shirt and faded jeans concealed his past, a former CIA agent, once the nightmare of underground organizations before disappearing after a tragedy 3 years ago. Tonight, the bar was more crowded than usual. A group of dock workers laughed loudly in a corner, while a middle-aged man, Carlos Mendes, sat alone near the door, his eyes darting around as if waiting for someone. Ryan watched him through the mirror above the counter, his hand unconsciously tightening on the cleaning cloth. Carlos, with his cheap suit and voice laced with a Mexican accent, had been his informant on an old case. Now, his unannounced appearance made Ryan smell danger. Suddenly, the bar door burst open. 3 men in black masks and shiny leather jackets stormed in, handguns held ready. The crowd fell silent, leaving only the growl of the rain outside. Carlos jumped to his feet, but a bullet pierced his chest before he could utter a word. Blood splattered on the wall, as bright red as paint. Customers screamed and rushed for the back door, but Ryan didn't move. He ducked behind the counter, his cold eyes scanning the assassins. They belonged to Black Knight, a notorious criminal organization from Mexico specializing in technology smuggling and manipulating the black market. The leader was a tall man, his mask carved with the image of a cobra, known as Viper. He stepped over Carlos's body, his voice a low growl. "Find him. Get the chip." Ryan clenched his fists, remembering Carlos's last whisper before he entered the bar. "If I die, you know what to do." He quietly picked up a dagger hidden under the counter, its steel blade glinting in the dim light. Suddenly, a figure darted out from a dark corner, a young woman with her hair tied up, wearing a leather jacket. She yelled, throwing a beer bottle that hit one of the assassins in the head, making him stagger. Ryan didn't wait any longer. He leaped over the counter, the dagger swinging up, and plunged it straight into the nearest man's neck. Hot blood spurted out as the killer collapsed. Viper turned, aiming his gun at Ryan, but Ryan rolled, dodging the bullet, then kicked hard at the man's knee. A bone cracked, and Viper roared but remained standing. The woman, who called herself Sophia, picked up the fallen assassin's gun and fired 2 shots at the remaining man. The bullets hit his shoulder, but he still charged forward, his dagger gleaming. Ryan jumped, locking the man's arm and twisting his wrist back. The sound of breaking bone echoed, followed by a scream of pain. Sophia shouted, "They know I'm here, we have to run." Ryan didn't ask questions, just pulled her toward the back door, where a dark alley awaited. Outside, the rain was a downpour, turning the alley into a slippery maze. Viper, though wounded, was in pursuit, leading 2 new soldiers. Ryan pushed Sophia behind a dumpster and picked up an iron bar from a pile of scrap. He dashed into the darkness, moving as fast as a phantom. One soldier approached, his gun sweeping across the area. Ryan threw the iron bar, hitting him in the chest and knocking him down. He leaped out, punched the second man hard in the face, snatched his gun, and fired a shot into Viper's leg. The monster roared but didn't fall. Sophia ran out, clutching a small object, the chip Carlos had given her before he died. "This is what they want," she yelled, her eyes flashing with desperation. Ryan nodded, pulling her through the winding alleys. The footsteps of Black Knight echoed behind them like a death drum. They stopped before a manhole cover, which Ryan lifted with the iron bar. "Get down here," he ordered, his voice sharp and cold. Sophia climbed down, while Ryan stayed behind, his eyes burning. He knew the chip in Sophia's hand wasn't just data, it was the key to the secret of his younger brother, Jake, who had gone missing 3 years ago. Gunshots rang out in the distance. Ryan jumped into the sewer, pulling the cover shut as darkness swallowed them both. A fire ignited within him, not just to survive, but to destroy Black Knight and find Jake. But first, they had to escape a Chicago drowning in rain and blood. Now, where are you listening to this story from? And what time is it where you are? Please leave a comment below to let me know you're safe and sound and fully focused on this story. My dear friend, we'll continue right after this. The sewer system beneath Chicago was as dark as a tomb, with only the sound of trickling foul water and the heavy breaths of Ryan Holt and Sophia. The stench assaulted their nostrils, but Ryan paid it no mind. He led the way, the flashlight from his old phone illuminating the mottled concrete walls. Sophia, clutching the chip in her jacket pocket, followed behind, her eyes darting about like a hunted animal. "They're going to find us," she whispered, her voice trembling but trying to remain calm. Ryan didn't reply, only motioned for her to be quiet. He knew Black Knight, the criminal organization from Mexico, never gave up. They stopped at a fork where the tunnel split in two. Ryan knelt, checking for tracks on the damp ground. A faint smear of blood, possibly from Viper or one of his men, led to the left. "They went this way," he muttered, his eyes sharp and cold. But before he could decide, a sound echoed from the distance, metal scraping against concrete, like a blade being sharpened. Ryan pulled Sophia behind a large pipe and turned off the flashlight. Darkness consumed everything, leaving only the sound of their pounding hearts. From the shadows, 3 figures emerged, their black masks etched with snake emblems, flashlights mounted on their submachine guns sweeping across the darkness. Ryan gripped the iron bar he'd found in the sewer, his breathing as steady as a machine. Sophia, trembling, touched his arm and whispered, "This chip, it contains Black Knight's transaction data. If it's lost, the entire financial world could collapse." Ryan nodded, not asking for more details. He thought of Jake, his younger brother who had disappeared 3 years ago during a failed CIA mission. Was Black Knight involved? The question burned in his chest. Suddenly, one of the soldiers stepped forward, his flashlight beam sweeping right over their hiding spot. Ryan acted. He lunged out, swinging the iron bar and smashing it against the soldier's head. A sickening crack echoed as the man collapsed, his blood mixing with the filthy water. The other 2 turned, guns blazing. Ryan rolled, dodging the bullets, then leaped up and kicked one man in the chest, sending him crashing into a pipe. Sophia, with sudden courage, picked up a brick and threw it, hitting the last man's flashlight and plunging them into darkness. Ryan seized the opportunity, stabbing the iron bar into the man's thigh, then landing a powerful punch to his face, knocking him out completely. They ran on, but new footsteps echoed behind them, more numerous, more aggressive. Ryan led Sophia into an old maintenance room, locking the rusty steel door behind them. In the dim light from a single failing bulb, Sophia pulled out the chip and plugged it into a small device she carried. The screen lit up with a series of complex, encrypted figures. "This is Black Knight's client list," she said, her voice trembling. "From banks in New York to drug lords in Mexico City. But there's one name connected to the CIA." Ryan froze, his heart pounding. "Whose name?" he asked, his voice a low growl. Before Sophia could answer, An explosion roared. The steel door shook, and dust rained down from the ceiling. Ryan pulled Sophia behind a metal crate and picked up a length of steel pipe from the floor. "They're using explosives," he muttered, his eyes scanning the room. There was a secondary exit in the far corner, but it was blocked by a pile of junk. He signaled for Sophia to get ready to run while he stood guard in front of the door. The steel door blew open, and white smoke from a flashbang grenade poured in. A tall figure stepped through. Not Viper, but Raven, a Black Knight assassin with bladed gloves. He sneered, his voice cold. "Halt. You think you can hide from me?" Ryan recognized the voice. Ethan Cole, his former CIA partner, the one who had betrayed him on the mission where Jake disappeared. Pain and rage surged through him, but Ryan kept his composure. Without waiting for Raven to attack, Ryan charged, the steel pipe blocking the blades on the gloves. Sparks flew as the two men struggled in the smoke and dust. Raven kicked Ryan in the stomach, but Ryan caught his leg, twisted, and threw him into a metal crate. Sophia seized the opportunity, running to the exit and clearing the junk. Ryan jumped back, but Raven fired a dart that grazed his shoulder. Drawing blood, he gritted his teeth, grabbed a can of chemical spray from a shelf, and sprayed it directly into Raven's face, forcing him to back away, clutching his eyes. "Run!" Ryan yelled. Pulling Sophia through the exit, they plunged into another tunnel, the footsteps of Raven and the Black Knight soldiers echoing behind them. Ryan paused to check his wound. Blood was soaking his shirt, but he didn't care. He looked at Sophia, his gaze sharp. The name on the chip. "Who is it, Sophia?" Gasping for breath, replied, "Diego Vargas, the head of Black Knight. He has connections to the CIA and to Jake." Ryan's heart felt like it stopped. Jake, his little brother, wasn't just missing. He might be a pawn of Black Knight. They kept running, a faint light from a manhole cover glowing ahead. Ryan lifted the cover and pushed Sophia onto the street. Chicago was still drenched in rain, but police sirens wailed in the distance. Ryan knew that to save Jake and destroy Black Knight, he had to get to Mexico City, where Diego Vargas was waiting. But first, they had to survive the night. The Chicago rain was still falling relentlessly as Ryan Holt and Sophia emerged from the manhole, gasping for air on a deserted industrial street. The pale yellow streetlights illuminated their faces, glistening on the streaks of grime. Ryan scanned his surroundings, his hand tightening on the gun he'd taken from a Black Knight soldier, which now only had 3 bullets left. Police sirens echoed in the distance, but he knew they weren't coming to help. The Chicago PD avoided Black Knight like the plague. "We have to get out of the city now," he whispered, pulling Sophia toward an abandoned parking lot. She nodded, clutching the chip, her eyes still haunted by the smoke-filled chaos in the tunnel. They broke into an old taxi, and Ryan used his agent skills to hotwire it. The engine roared to life, and they sped off into the night, heading for O'Hare Airport. Along the way, Sophia quickly explained that the chip was more than just a transaction list. It held the encryption keys to manipulate the entire global cryptocurrency system, which Diego Vargas used for money laundering and controlling underground banks. "He's in Mexico City," she said, her voice shaking. "If we don't get there by dawn, Black Knight will erase every trace." Ryan nodded, but his mind drifted to the past. 3 years ago, on a mission at the Mexican border, Jake had vanished after Raven. Ethan Cole betrayed their team. Now, the chip suggested Jake might be Vargas's prisoner. The pain was like a knife twisting in his heart. The airport was a chaotic maze under the downpour. Ryan used fake IDs to buy tickets for the earliest flight to Mexico City. A cargo flight that would attract less attention. On the plane, he didn't sleep, just sat silently, his hand tracing a scar on his wrist, a memento from the last time he saw Jake. Sophia, sitting next to him, drifted off to sleep from exhaustion. But he couldn't. Every little noise made him jump, imagining Viper or Raven hunting for them. Mexico City greeted them with oppressive heat and the smell of exhaust fumes mixed with street spices. They rented an old truck from a smuggler at a black market and drove straight into the slums of Colonia Doctori's Black Knight's territory. The narrow alleys twisted and turned, walls covered in graffiti of cobras, and children played soccer amidst piles of trash. Ryan parked at a roadside cantina where an old informant of his, a smuggler named Rico, was known to hang out. "Wait here," he told Sophia, his voice sharp. "If something happens, get back to the truck and drive to the U.S. Embassy." He walked into the cantina, the air thick with the smell of tequila and sweat. Rico, a heavy-set man with a full beard, sat in a corner, his eyes darting nervously. "Halt! You're crazy to come back here," he whispered, as Ryan sat down. "Vargas knows you're hunting him. He has Jake, your brother, as a hostage, training him to be an assassin." Ryan's heart tightened, but he kept his voice calm. "The chip. Where is it?" Rico glanced around, then whispered, "The alley behind the bar. Meet a broker named Lobo. But be careful. He's one of Black Knight's hounds." Ryan left the cantina and slipped into the dark alley behind it, where the shadows swallowed everything but the distant barking of dogs. Lobo, a skinny man with a snake tattoo wrapped around his neck, was waiting, a dagger gleaming in his hand. "You want the chip? Show me the money," he growled, his voice a mix of Spanish and English. Ryan shook his head and stepped forward. "I just need information." "What's Vargas's plan?" Lobo sneered and drew his knife. "Information costs blood." The fight exploded in an instant. Lobo lunged, his knife slashing at Ryan's chest. Ryan dodged to the side, using his elbow to strike Lobo's wrist, sending the knife flying. Lobo countered with a low kick to Ryan's knee, making him stumble. The two men rolled on the dirty ground, grappling hand to hand. Ryan got Lobo in a chokehold, squeezing tight. But the man kneed him in the gut and broke free. They got to their feet. Bunting. Lobo's knife back in his hand. "Vargas is using the chip to hack the crypto exchange," he snarled between slashes. "He's going to crash the market, control billions of dollars. Jake. The kid is the final encryption key." Ryan charged in, blocking the blade with his forearm, blood seeping from the cut. He punched Lobo hard in the jaw, then spun and kicked his knee, making him fall. But before Ryan could ask more, a sound came from the end of the alley. A muscular assassin, El Toro, appeared, built like a bear, his body covered in scars and Black Knight tattoos. He laughed loudly, drawing a curved machete. "You here?" "Halt." El Toro charged like a machine, his machete swinging horizontally, cutting through the air. Ryan rolled to avoid it, grabbing Lobo's knife. But the broker had already fled. He blocked a second slash, sparks flying as steel mid-steel. El Toro's strength forced Ryan back, his back hitting a brick wall. He punched Ryan hard in the chest, cracking a rib and forcing the air from his lungs. Ryan coughed up blood but didn't fall. He thought of Jake, the boy who used to laugh with him in their Chicago backyard, and a fire of rage erupted. He leaped up, stabbing the knife into El Toro's thigh, making him roar in pain. Seizing the moment, Ryan kicked the machete away, then jumped onto the man's back, locking his arms around his neck. El Toro struggled, slamming him against the wall, but Ryan squeezed tighter, whispering, "Tell me, where is Jake?" The man just laughed, but Sophia suddenly appeared from the shadows, holding the gun from the truck, and fired a single shot into El Toro's shoulder. He collapsed, his blood pooling on the ground. Ryan panted, checking El Toro's pockets, a plane ticket to Cancun, and a scrap of paper with coordinates to a seaside villa. "This is our next clue," he told Sophia, his eyes glinting with determination. But the roar of a Black Knight truck echoed from the end of the alley. They ran to their car, speeding into the Mexico City night, heading for the airport. Ryan knew Diego Vargas was waiting, and Jake could be the key, or a deadly trap. On the cramped flight from Mexico City to Cancun, Ryan Holt sat silently by the window, his gaze fixed on the sea of white clouds below. The engine's drone drowned out the passengers' whispers, but in his mind, there was only the image of Jake, his brother with the boyish smile, now likely brainwashed into a tool for Black Knight. Sophia, sitting beside him, checked the chip in her pocket, her voice low. "El Toro's ticket leads to a seaside villa. It's Diego Vargas's stronghold in Cancun. We have to be careful. He has mechanized guards." Ryan nodded, his hand tightening on the dagger hidden in his jacket. He didn't fully trust Sophia, but she was his only ally right now. The plane landed in the humid heat of the Caribbean, the smell of sea salt mixed with truck exhaust greeting them. Cancun was a tourist paradise, but to Ryan, it was just another battlefield. The white sand beaches shimmering under the moonlight, the neon-lit high-rise hotels, and the drunken crowds of tourists couldn't hide the shadow of Black Knight. They rented a beat-up truck from a roadside garage and sped straight for the coordinates on the scrap of paper. The coastal road twisted and turned, the salty sea breeze blowing through the open window, carrying the sound of crashing waves. Sophia pointed at the map. "The villa is on the southern point, heavily guarded. I can hack the cameras if we can get close." Ryan didn't answer, just accelerated, his eyes scanning the rearview mirror. A black SUV was tailing them from a distance. The chase began abruptly. The SUV surged forward, its headlights blinding, guns firing from the windows. Ryan yanked the wheel, the truck swerving as bullets slammed into the rear cargo bed. "Hold on," he yelled, flooring it and veering onto the beach. White sand sprayed from under the wheels as ocean waves lapped at the tires. Sophia pulled a gun from the glove compartment and fired back, a bullet shattering the SUV's windshield. The pursuing vehicle followed, its wheels sinking into the soft sand. Ryan swerved sharply to avoid a large rock, but the SUV hit it and flipped over. Two Black Knight soldiers tumbled out, their black masks glinting in the moonlight. Ryan stopped the truck and jumped out, dagger at the ready. The first soldier got to his feet. "A pistol him." Ryan charged, blocking the barrel with his left hand and plunging the dagger into the man's gut with his right. Blood sprayed, hot on the sand. The second one attacked from behind, a hammer-like fist crashing into Ryan's back. It spun around, kicking low at the man's knee with a sickening crack of bone. Sophia ran up and shot him in the leg, bringing him down. "They knew we were coming," she panted, her eyes scanning the area. Ryan checked the bodies and found a phone. A message from Diego Vargas read, "Eliminate Holt. Jake is the bait." His heart clenched. Jake was alive, but he was being used as a trap. They continued to the villa, a magnificent white building on a cliffside, searchlights sweeping across the sea. Ryan and Sophia hid behind a cluster of palm trees, observing. Guards patrolled with rifles, and hounds barked loudly. Sophia hacked into the security system with a small device. The screen showing camera footage. Diego Vargas, tall with a silver mustache, sat in the living room next to a young man, Jake. His eyes vacant. His body covered in scars. He's brainwashed him. Sophia whispered, her voice pained. Ryan tightened his grip on his dagger as memories flooded back. Jake being captured during the border mission. Him watching helplessly as his brother was dragged away. Now, he was Vargas's weapon. They slipped in through the back fence, avoiding the searchlights. A guard appeared, a snake-shaped pendant around his neck. Ryan leaped from the shadows, putting him in a chokehold and squeezing until the man passed out. Sophia took his keycard, and they slipped into a dark corridor. But a trap was triggered, steel doors slammed shut, and red lights flashed. 3 guards charged, one built like El Toro and wielding a machete. Ryan pushed Sophia behind him and rushed forward. He dodged the first swing and punched the muscular man in the throat, but he only staggered. The other 2 opened fire, a bullet grazing Ryan's shoulder, blood soaking his shirt. He rolled, snatching the machete from the muscular man's hand and swinging it sideways, slicing through the barrel of one guard's gun. Sophia fired from behind, taking down the second man. The muscular one charged, his fist slamming into Ryan's chest and sending him into a wall. His ribs screamed in pain, but he didn't go down. Thinking of Jake, he leaped up, bringing the machete down on the man's arm, sending blood flying. He roared, but Ryan kicked his knee, making him buckle, a final punch to the jaw, and the man collapsed. They ran deeper into the villa, but alarms blared. Diego Vargas appeared at the end of the hall next to Jake, who was now holding a gun, his eyes cold. "Halt. You're right on time." Vargas sneered, his voice a low Mexican drawl. "Jake, kill him." Jake raised the gun, his finger trembling slightly. Ryan held up his hands. "Jake, it's me. Remember, the backyard in Chicago. You beat me at basketball." Jake faltered, his gaze wavering. But Vargas commanded. "Shoot!" A volley of shots erupted, but they missed Ryan. Jake had fired wide. He lunged, tackling Vargas. Ryan jumped in, landing a hard punch on Vargas's face that sent him to the floor. Sophia hacked the door lock. Opening an escape route, they dragged Jake out to the beach. The waves crashing loudly under the moon, Vargas roared from a distance, summoning his soldiers. Ryan hugged Jake. His voice choked. "You're alive." "But what did they do to you?" Jake whispered. "Brainwashing. The chip is the key to decode it." They scrambled into the truck and sped into the night, heading for Chicago. But the roar of Black Knight vehicles echoed behind them. Ryan knew the fight with Vargas had just begun, and Jake could be an ally or a traitor. The truck tore down the Cancun coastal road, its wheels kicking up white sand under the hazy moonlight. Ryan Holt floored the gas, the rearview mirror reflecting the blinding headlights of 3 Black Knight SUVs in hot pursuit. Sophia sat beside him, clutching her gun. Turning to look at Jake in the back seat, he sat silently, his eyes vacant, but slowly regaining some awareness after the shock. "They're gaining on us," Sophia yelled, the sea wind whistling through the broken window. Ryan yanked the wheel, swerving onto a dense jungle road, branches lashing the windshield like whips. A bullet from the first SUV slammed into the back of the truck, smoke rising. Ryan gritted his teeth, thinking of Jake. He was once a fun-loving kid, now brainwashed into a tool. Rage exploded inside him. He slammed on the brakes, spinning the truck to block the road. The truck door flew open, and Ryan jumped out. Taking cover behind a tree, Sophia and Jake followed suit. 3 SUVs screeched to a halt, doors flying open as 8 Black Knight soldiers poured out, submachine guns sweeping the area. Ryan fired twice with the gun he'd taken, downing 1 man. Sophia provided cover fire, her bullet piercing an SUV's windshield. Jake, trembling, picked up a dagger from the floor. "Brother, I remember a little. They injected me with something." Ryan nodded, his eyes blazing. "Stay put. I'll handle this." He vanished into the jungle's darkness, moving like a ghost. A soldier stepped forward, and Ryan leaped from behind a tree, putting him in a chokehold and snapping his neck. The crack of bone echoed, drawing 2 others. They charged, daggers glinting. Ryan dodged the first slash, kicked the first man in the stomach, then landed a hard punch on the second one's jaw. Blood flew, but one of them got up, slashing across his shoulder. "A deep gash," Ryan roared, plunging his dagger back into the man's chest. Sophia yelled from a distance. More cars. 2 more SUVs appeared. Soldiers jumping out as a drone rose into the sky, its red laser scanning the area. Ryan pulled Jake and Sophia deeper into the jungle, the drone firing from above, dirt exploding around them. They scrambled back to the truck, and Ryan sped toward a small coastal airstrip. A private flight, hijacked from a smuggler, took them to Chicago. On the plane, Ryan bandaged his wound, looking at Jake. "You'll be okay. We're going to tear them down." Chicago greeted them with biting cold, a light snow falling on the grey streets. They hid in an abandoned warehouse in the industrial South Side, where Sophia hacked the chip to find Black Knight's database. "Here," she pointed at the screen, "an underground server farm holding hacked cryptocurrency data. Destroy it, and Vargas loses billions." Ryan nodded, remembering the last time he saw Jake before the border mission. He was smiling. "Bro, I'm going to follow you and become an agent. Now." Jake sat silently, trying to remember. "They used me to test the encryption keys. I know how to get into the server." His determination ignited. Ryan prepared his weapons, a pistol, a dagger, and a few homemade grenades. They attacked at midnight. The facility was under an old factory, the entrance through an underground tunnel. Ryan cut the lock, and they slipped into a cold concrete hallway with flickering neon lights. Patrol drones flew by, their sensors scanning. Sophia hacked and disabled one, but 2 others spotted them and fired lasers. Ryan charged out, throwing his dagger and hitting one's propeller, causing it to explode. The second one rushed him. He leaped onto a wall, kicked it to the floor, and stomped it to pieces. Alarms blared, and mercenaries poured out, 6 of them, clad in black armor and carrying rifles. The fight was intense. Ryan took cover behind a metal crate, firing 3 shots and taking down 2 men. Sophia and Jake provided backup from behind. One charged, swinging a machete. Ryan dodged, using his bare hands to lock the man's arm, twisting it back before punching him in the throat. Bones snapped, and he collapsed. But another one sniped from a distance, a bullet grazing Ryan's thigh, drawing blood. He gritted his teeth, rolled, and snatched a gun from a body, firing repeatedly. Jake suddenly joined in, stabbing a man from behind. "I remember how to fight." Sophia hacked the server door, but more soldiers were coming, and new drones flew out. Ryan pushed Jake and Sophia into the server room, staying behind to cover them. 4 soldiers charged in, one a giant like El Toro. Ryan rushed forward, kicking low at the giant's knee. But he only staggered. A fist came crashing down. Ryan dodged and threw a grenade, which exploded in a cloud of dust and smoke. The giant roared, charging through the smoke. But Ryan leapt onto his back, wrapping a cable from the wall around his neck. The man struggled, slamming him against a server rack. But Ryan held on, squeezing until he passed out. Sophia yelled. "It's destroyed!" Data wiped. They ran out. But a new figure appeared in the doorway. El Cuervo, Black Knight's deadliest assassin, dressed in a black cloak, his eyes glowing red, holding a mechanized bow. El Cuervo fired an arrow, embedding it in Sophia's shoulder, and she fell. Ryan pulled her up and fired back. But he dodged like a phantom. Vargas sends his regards. He snarled in a Mexican accent. They ran to the surface as heavy snow fell. El Cuervo impulsó. Ryan knew that destroying the server was just the first step. Now, he would be hunted to the ends of the earth. The heavy Chicago snow turned the streets into a white battlefield. But Ryan Holt didn't stop. The truck sped through the slippery streets, El Cuervo's blinding headlights close behind. Sofia drove, her hands trembling on the wheel, while Ryan and Jake took cover in the back, guns aimed behind them. "He's too fast," Sophia yelled, the cold wind whistling through a broken door crack. Ryan fired 2 shots, the bullets hitting El Cuervo's tires, causing him to swerve and crash into a lamppost. They escaped, speeding towards Midway Airport, where a cargo flight to Mexico was waiting. Sophia had hacked them a reservation. On the plane, Ryan looked at Jake, who whispered, "I feel something in my head." "An order." Ryan squeezed his hand. "We'll erase it. Vargas will pay." Mexico greeted them again with oppressive heat. But this time it was off the coast of Cancun. On a cruise ship, Sophia had hacked them onto. The ship glided across the Caribbean Sea, waves crashing loudly under a grey sky that promised a storm. They disguised themselves as tourists, hiding in their cabin and planning their assault on Diego Vargas's fortress in Guadalajara. Sophia hacked the ship's systems to track Black Knight signals, while Ryan trained Jake in basic self-defense. But suddenly, the ship's speakers crackled to life. "Attention passenger. A level 8 storm is approaching." Ryan smelled danger, and it wasn't a natural storm. The storm hit like a monster, with waves meters high, slamming against the ship's side and rain lashing the deck. Ryan ran to the upper deck, the wind howling like a beast. That's when El Cuervo emerged from the shadows, his black cloak whipping in the wind, his mechanized bow glistening with rainwater. "Halt! You can't escape," he roared, his voice cutting through the sound of the waves. Ryan gripped his dagger and charged. The first arrow whizzed past his ear, embedding itself in the wooden deck. He rolled to avoid a crashing wave, then leaped up and kicked El Cuervo's hand, knocking the bow away. The 2 men wrestled on the slippery deck, their fists crashing together like thunder. El Cuervo was strong, a hammer-like punch hitting Ryan in the chest and sending him into the railing. Blood mixed with rain, but Ryan countered with an elbow to his jaw, making his teeth clatter. A huge wave crashed over them, knocking them both down. Ryan grabbed a rope and pulled himself up, but El Cuervo drew a short knife and slashed. He dodged, wrapping the rope around his neck and pulling tight. He struggled, kicking Ryan in the stomach to break free. Vargas turned Jake into a living weapon. He sneered through the storm. A time bomb in his head, Ryan's heart seized. Jake's brainwashing wasn't just about control. It was a self-destruct program if he was rescued. From the cabin, Sophia hacked the ship's systems, turning a blinding searchlight on El Cuervo, temporarily blinding him. She yelled over the intercom, "Ryan, get him below." Ryan took the opportunity, rushing forward and pummeling his face with punches, sending blood flying. El Cuervo fought back, stabbing Ryan in the shoulder with his knife. A searing pain. He gritted his teeth. He spun around, and with all his strength, shoved him into the waves. The sea swept El Cuervo away. He let out a final roar before sinking beneath the surface, but the storm still raged, the ship rocking violently. Ryan ran back to the cabin to find Sophia and Jake. The boy was huddled over, his eyes red. I hear the whispers. The order is to kill you. Ryan hugged Jake, his voice firm. We'll erase it in Guadalajara. Vargas's fortress is our next target. Sophia hacked the ship's maps. Finding an escape route via a lifeboat, they lowered it into the storm, the waves tossing it violently. Ryan rowed hard, his muscles straining, the rain hitting his face like needles. Sophia checked the chip. The fortress has a mechanized defense system. Jake might be the key to hacking it from the inside. Jake nodded weakly. I remember a command code from when I was captured. The lifeboat reached the chaotic shores of Cancun, waves crashing onto the sand. They rented an old jeep and sped towards Guadalajara. Through winding mountain roads shrouded in fog, Ryan drove. Thinking about El Cuervo's words, Jake was a living weapon. Could he betray them? Memories flooded back. Jake being dragged away on the border at night. Him, yelling his name helplessly. Now, he wouldn't lose him again. Sophia touched his shoulder. We need backup. But who would believe us? Ryan shook his head. It's just us. The fortress is where it ends. Arriving in Guadalajara, an ancient city of stone churches and bustling markets, they hid in a cheap motel. Sophia hacked the local network, confirming the fortress was on the outskirts. With high walls and mechanized guards, Ryan checked his weapons. A pistol, a knife, and the grenades from the cruise ship. Jake whispered, I can disable the drones if I can get inside. Ryan looked at him, his gaze steady. We'll get in, and we'll take Vargas out. But in the distance, the roar of Black Knight trucks echoed. They had been found. Ryan stood up, ready for the next fight. The roar of Black Knight trucks outside the cheap Guadalajara motel shattered the night's silence. Ryan Holt dove out the window, pulling Sophia and Jake with him. Just as the main door was kicked in, they ran into the ancient stone streets, the sound of gunfire echoing behind them, leading them to an old church where they hoped to find shelter, and maybe information from an anonymous former agent. San Miguel Church, with its weathered stone walls and towering bell tower, stood silently under the starry Mexican sky. Ryan pushed open the heavy wooden doors, pulling Sophia and Jake inside, where the smell of old incense and candle wax hung in the air. The dim light from the altar candles illuminated their faces, revealing exhaustion and weariness. Jake huddled in a corner, whispering, the whispers in my head. They're telling me to betray you. Sophia checked the chip, her voice trembling. We need to find Father Luis. He was a former CIA agent. He knows about Black Knight. He's here. Ryan nodded, but his heart was filled with doubt. Heavy footsteps echoed from outside. Black Knight had caught up. Ryan signaled for the group to hide behind the pulpit, grabbing an iron crucifix from the altar as a makeshift weapon. The church doors burst open, and 5 Black Knight soldiers stormed in, their snake-engraved black masks and submachine guns sweeping the room. Leading them was a tall man, Serpiente, with bladed gloves. Find them, he roared. Ryan launched from the shadows, the crucifix smashing hard against the nearest soldier's head with a sickening crack. Sophia fired from behind, taking one down. Jake, though trembling, grabbed a flask of holy water and threw it in the third man's face, making him recoil. The fight spilled into the churchyard, dust kicking up under their feet. Ryan faced Serpiente, dodging a slash from his blades, then kicking low at his knee. The man staggered but countered with a bladed punch that grazed Ryan's arm. Drawing blood, Espon, using the crucifix to block the blades, sending sparks flying. Sophia wrestled with a soldier, driving an elbow into his neck before grabbing his gun. Jake yelled and charged in to help, punching the last man in the face. Dust filled the air as the church bells rang out like a warning. From the shadows, an old man appeared. Padre Luis, dressed in a brown robe, his eyes sharp beneath his glasses. "Stop, I know what you're looking for." He raised a hand, gesturing for peace. Ryan paused, but didn't lower his weapon. They retreated into a room behind the church, where Padre Luis explained, "Black Knight doesn't just deal in cryptocurrency. They manipulate the Mexican government, using chips to install malware in the global banking system. Jake, the boy is an experiment. A bomb that will detonate if the chip is removed." Jake lowered his head, tears streaming down his face. "I can feel it, like a kill command." Sophia suddenly froze, her face pale. She drew her gun, pointing it at Ryan. I don't want to do this. They have my family in Mexico City. They told me to hand over Jake and the chip." Ryan looked at her, his eyes filled with pain but not surprise. "Sophia, don't. We can save them." She trembled, her finger on the trigger. Jake screamed, "Don't." "Sis," suddenly. Sophia whipped the gun toward the doorway, where Serpiente was sneaking in. She fired 2 shots, taking him down. But new footsteps echoed, more of them. They ran into the churchyard, dust kicking up at their feet. Sophia, with tears rolling down her face, whispered, "They forced me. They're threatening my little sister." Ryan nodded. "I understand. Now we fight together." A team of Black Knight soldiers surrounded the yard, led by a new man, Lobo Negro, who was towering and had cybernetic arms. Ryan charged, confronting him. Lobo Negro threw a heavy punch, his mechanical arms smashing into the ground and creating a deep crater. Ryan dodged, using a heavy cross to strike the arm's joint, causing a screech of metal. The man roared, grabbing Ryan and lifting him into the air. Ryan plunged his knife into a gap in the armor, and blood and oil spurted out. Sophia and Jake provided cover, shooting down 2 soldiers. The air was thick with dust as the night wind whipped through the ancient churchyard. Ryan fell, rolling to avoid the next punch, then kicked Lobo Negro's knee, forcing him to buckle. He leaped up, wrapping a bell rope from the tower around the man's neck and pulling tight. He struggled, thrashing wildly, kicking up a blinding dust storm. Sophia threw a grenade that exploded, taking out the remaining 3 men. Lobo Negro collapsed, but before he died, he laughed. "Vargas is waiting at the fortress, and El Cuervo, he's alive." Ryan gasped for breath and turned to Sophia. "I forgive you. We're a team." She nodded, tears streaming. Padre Luis emerged, handing him a slip of paper. "The coordinates for the fortress on the outskirts, but be careful. It's a mechanized hell." Ryan clenched his fist and looked at Jake. "You ready?" The boy nodded, his gaze more determined than ever. They left the church, plunging into the Guadalajara night, heading for the fortress. But from a distance, the silhouette of El Cuervo flickered in the darkness. He had survived, and the hunt was back on. The jeep tore through the rugged mountain roads on the outskirts of Guadalajara, kicking up a cloud of dust. Ryan Holt gripped the steering wheel, his eyes scanning the rearview mirror. El Cuervo's shadow still followed stealthily, a ghost in the mist. Sophia sat beside him, hacking a map on her device, whispering, "The fortress is 5 kilometers from here. High walls, drone patrols, and mechanized soldiers. We need Jake to hack from the inside to disable them." Jake, in the back seat, his face pale, tried to suppress the brainwashing whispers in his head. "I can do it. But if the kill command activates, I'll lose control." Ryan nodded, his heart heavy. This was the last chance to erase the programming in his brother's mind. The fortress appeared like a steel monster amidst the hills, with towering concrete walls and red laser scanners sweeping across them. The air was thick with the smell of metal and oil, and the mountain wind whistled through the watchtowers like a deadly warning. Ryan stopped the jeep behind a thicket of bushes and observed drones hovered overhead, and mechanized soldiers patrolled with gleaming robotic arms. "We'll sneak in from the back," he whispered, leading Sophia and Jake. They crawled over the rough terrain, avoiding the searchlights. A drone flew low, its sensor beeping. Ryan threw a rock as a distraction, and it flew away. They cut through the electric fence and slipped into the inner courtyard, a maze of pipes and metal containers. An alarm suddenly blared. 4 mechanized soldiers rushed out, their eyes glowing red, machine guns mounted on their arms. Ryan pushed Jake and Sophia behind a container and charged in. The first one opened fire. He rolled to evade, then leaped up and kicked its robotic leg joint. With a screech of metal, it stumbled. Sophia fired from a distance, a bullet embedding in its head sensor, causing it to fall. Ryan faced the second one, dodging a burst of fire and plunging his knife into a gap in its armor, oil spraying out like blood. It punched hard, hitting his shoulder with a jolt of pain. It spun around, wrapping a cable from the wall around its neck and pulling until its head exploded. They ran deeper into the fortress, through dark corridors filled with the smell of ozone from the machinery. Jake pointed. "The control room is downstairs. I remember the door code, but a trap activated." The floor shook, and saw blades shot out from the walls. Ryan pushed Sophia out of the way, a blade grazing his leg, drawing blood. Jake hacked a control panel, disabling the trap. The code from the brainwashing. It's useful for something. They entered the server room, where servers blinked with green lights. Sophia plugged in a chip, downloading the data to erase Jake's brainwashing. But more soldiers swarmed in, 6 of them, led by El Cuervo, who had survived the sea, his face now a mess of burn scars. El Cuervo sneered. "Holt, you think you can save the kid? Activate command." Jake froze, his eyes glowing red, and he turned to point his gun at Ryan. "Brother, I can't control it." The brainwashing protocol activated, turning him into an assassin. Ryan dodged the shot, heartbroken. "Jake, fight it. Remember, Mom. Remember our home in Chicago." Jake trembled, his shot going wide. Sophia hacked furiously, but El Cuervo lunged at Ryan, a short knife slashing sideways. He blocked with his arm, blood flowing, then threw a hard punch to the man's face. The two grappled, rolling across the metal floor, the clang of metal echoing through the room. Mechanized soldiers charged in. One grabbed Sophia, its robotic arm tightening around her. She screamed, stabbing its joint with her knife to break free, then shot it in the head. Ryan shoved El Cuervo into a server, sending sparks flying. He got up, slashing with his knife, grazing Ryan's chest. Ryan thought of a younger Jake, who used to cry whenever he left for a mission. "Don't leave me. A fire of rage ignited, and he charged forward, kicking El Cuervo in the stomach, then leaped on him, delivering a rapid series of punches to his face. He collapsed, blood pooling on the floor. Jake was still fighting his inner battle. His gun aimed at Sophia. "Kill them," the command echoed in his head, but Ryan rushed over, hugging him tightly. "Jake, it's me. We're brothers. Remember that basketball game you won against me?" Jake trembled, tears rolling down his cheeks. "Brother, Ryan." The programming weakened, and he dropped the gun. Sophia finished the hack. Data erased. Defense systems are down. But she screamed. A final soldier fired, the bullet hitting her in the chest. She fell, blood soaking her shirt, and whispered, "Save my sister," in Mexico City. Ryan held her, his eyes red. "You saved us. I promise." The fortress shook as explosions from the server rooms spread. Ryan pulled Jake and Sophia outside as mechanized soldiers blew up behind them. They jumped into the jeep, Sophia growing weaker in his arms. El Cuervo rose from the rubble, but an explosion consumed him. Ryan drove away at high speed, heading for Chicago. But he knew Diego Vargas would retaliate. Sophia had sacrificed herself to save them. And now, Jake was slowly coming to his senses. "I remember everything. Thank you, brother." Ryan squeezed his hand, but the pain of losing Sophia weighed heavily. The battle wasn't over. Vargas was waiting at the top. The jeep sped through the snow-covered streets of Chicago, the cold wind cutting like a reminder of the nightmare to come. Ryan Holt glanced at Sophia lying weakly in the back, her chest wound crudely bandaged, still seeping blood. Jake sat beside her, holding her hand tightly, whispering, "You're going to be okay. We have to get to the tower, where Vargas is hiding." Ryan nodded. Thinking of Padre Luis's words, the fortress was just a shell. The financial tower downtown was the final stronghold, where Vargas had planted a bomb to destroy all evidence if cornered. The glass tower glittered under the night snow, its high-rise windows reflecting red neon lights like blood. Ryan parked in a back alley and helped Sophia out. She was gasping for breath. "I hacked the system. I can expose the Black Knight network to the world. But Vargas has a bomb, set to a countdown if anyone approaches." Ryan tightened his grip on his gun. "We're going in. Jake, you stay with Sophia." Hack from the jeep. But Jake shook his head, his gaze firm. "I have to face him. The command in my head, only he can erase it completely." Ryan hesitated but nodded. It was time to test his brother's loyalty. They slipped in through a side door into a dark corridor smelling of ozone from the servers. The alarms were silent, but Ryan sensed danger. A team of Black Knight soldiers burst out of the elevator, 5 of them in black armor, rifles at the ready. Ryan pushed Jake behind a pillar and charged. He fired 2 shots, taking down the first man, his head exploding. The second one rushed him, slashing with a dagger. Ryan dodged, slamming his elbow into the man's throat with a crack of bone. Jake joined in, firing from behind and taking down the third. But one of them punched Ryan hard in the chest, sending him into a glass wall, which spiderwebbed with cracks. He countered with a low kick, making the man buckle, then plunged his knife into a gap in the armor. The elevator opened, leading to the top floor. Ryan and Jake stepped inside, the doors closing with a mechanical groan. Jake whispered, "I remember. He used me to encrypt the final bomb." Ryan put a hand on his shoulder. "Fight it. I'm here." The doors opened to a vast glass penthouse overlooking a snow-white Chicago. Diego Vargas stood in the middle, a tall man in a black suit with a silver mustache, holding a bomb remote. "Holt, you came here to die." he sneered, his accent a low rumble from Mexico. Jake. Activate the command, kill your brother. Jake froze, his eyes glowing red. His gun pointed at Ryan. The brainwashing exploded in his mind, and he roared. Brother, you have to die. Ryan dodged the shot, his heart aching. Jake, don't you remember? Your birthday. I got you that bike. We raced in the park. Jake trembled, firing wide, the bullet shattering the glass. Snow blew in through the hole. Vargas pressed the remote. The bomb is on a countdown. 10 minutes. The tower shuddered slightly as red lights began to flash. Ryan lunged at Vargas, kicking the remote out of his hand. The two men grappled, their fists landing like thunderclaps. Vargas was strong, his punch catching Ryan's jaw, drawing blood. He countered with an elbow to the man's throat, making him stumble. Jake was still struggling, his gun wavering. I don't want to, Sophia. From the jeep below, hacked through the radio. I've exposed them. The entire Black Knight network is online globally. Banks, governments. It's all out. Vargas roared and lunged at Ryan, a short knife slashing sideways. He dodged, locking the man's arm and twisting it back. Bones snapped, and he screamed in pain. But Vargas kicked low, knocking Ryan down. The remote skittering nearby, Jake lunged for the remote. But the command activated. Kill him. He pointed the gun at Ryan again. Ryan's heart clenched. Jake, we're brothers. Remember when Mom died? I promised to protect you. The memory flooded back, their mother dying in an accident. The two brothers, relying on each other in grey Chicago, tears streamed down Jake's face. Brother, Ryan. The programming shattered, and he turned the gun on Vargas. It's over. He fired a single shot into the man's leg, and he collapsed. Ryan got up and charged, punching Vargas repeatedly in the face. He struggled, grabbing a knife and stabbing Ryan in the shoulder, the pain sharp and deep. Ryan wrapped his hands around his throat. You took my brother. You manipulated so many lives. Vargas just sneered. You win. The bomb still goes off. The clock showed 2 minutes. Jake weakly hacked the remote. I can disable it, Sophia yelled through the radio. The data's spreading. The FBI is on their way. Vargas roared and lunged at Jake, but Ryan shoved him through the broken window, leaving him dangling in the snowy air. Ryan pulled him back up, not killing him. You're going to live to see your empire fall. But Vargas had one last laugh. The chip was just the tip of the iceberg. The conspiracy is bigger. Someone else is waiting for you. He snatched the remote from Jake and hit a self-destruct button. The bomb activated, and the tower shook violently. Ryan pulled Jake down the stairwell as glass shattered and snow swirled around them. They burst outside just as a massive explosion erupted behind them, engulfing the tower in flames. Sophia was waiting in the jeep, smiling weakly. We're one, but my sister. Ryan held her. We'll save her, Jake cried. I'm free, but from the rubble, a mysterious figure picked up a remaining fragment of the chip and vanished into the night. Ryan knew the darkness had not yet passed. Dawn's first light broke through the thick Chicago snow, coloring the ruins of the glass tower red like an open wound. Ryan Holt burst from an emergency exit, carrying Sophia over his shoulder, with Jake running close behind. Gasping for breath, the sound of explosions echoed behind them as fire consumed the penthouse, sending plumes of black smoke into the grey sky. Police and fire sirens wailed in the distance, but Ryan didn't stop. He pulled the group into a dark alley, hiding behind a dumpster to check Sophia's wound. She smiled weakly. her hand clutching the now fragmented chip. We exposed them. Black Knight has fallen, but blood still seeped from her chest, and her breathing was shallow. Ryan knelt, bandaging the wound with a torn piece of his shirt. You're going to live. I promised to save your sister in Mexico City. Sophia shook her head weakly. It's too late. But Jake, the boy is safe. Jake hugged his brother tightly, tears streaming down his face. Brother, I'm free. The whispers are gone. Ryan squeezed his shoulder, his heart heavy. He thought back on their bloody journey from a bar in Chicago to an iron fortress in Guadalajara, from the raging Caribbean Sea to this tower. Diego Vargas was dead in the fire, but his words hinted at a larger conspiracy. Someone else was waiting. Footsteps echoed from the rubble. Ryan raised his gun. Ready. A shadowy figure emerged from the smoke and dust, wearing a black coat, their face obscured. They picked up the remaining chip fragment from the ground, which glinted in the faint dawn light. Ryan shouted, "Stop." He fired a shot. But the figure dodged with phantom-like speed and disappeared into a dark alley. Jake whispered, "Brother, that chip fragment. It contains the final code. If he has it, the conspiracy will continue." Ryan gritted his teeth and stood up. "We'll find him. But first, we save Sophia." They rushed to the hidden jeep nearby, and Ryan sped through the chaotic streets. Police had cordoned off the area, and news was spreading the Black Knight network was exposed, leading to a wave of arrests from Mexico to New York. But Ryan knew the darkness hadn't lifted. That stranger, perhaps a higher-ranking operative than Vargas, or a new power, now held the key. Sophia breathed heavily. I sent the data to the FBI. But the chip fragment, it could be used to hack the system again." Ryan nodded, accelerating toward the nearest hospital as snow swirled across the windshield. At the hospital, doctors rushed to save Sophia, wheeling her into the emergency room. Ryan and Jake waited in the cold hallway, the smell of antiseptic mixing with their anxiety. Jake sat silently, then suddenly spoke. "Brother, I remember everything. Vargas captured me at the border, injected me with the brainwashing drug, and used me to encrypt the bomb. But now, I want to help you stop all of it." Ryan looked at him with rare gentleness. "You've done enough. From now on, I protect you." But his phone buzzed, an anonymous text. "The chip belongs to us. Halt. A new game has begun." Ryan clenched his fist. Knowing the stranger was hunting them, the police arrived and questioned them. Ryan used fake IDs and told a half-truth he was a victim of Black Knight. And Sophia was the hacker who exposed them. They were released. But the FBI intervened. An agent named Reyes approached them. "Halt. We know you were once CIA. Black Knight didn't end with Vargas. There's a larger network, from Russia to Spain. Help us." Ryan shook his head. "I do things my way." He pulled Jake away, heading for a hidden motel on the outskirts of Chicago where the snow fell silently. That night, Ryan sat by the window, watching the white snow blanket, the city. Jake was fast asleep, and Sophia was still in the hospital. But he knew she would live. The doctor had given him good news. He thought about Sophia. She had betrayed them for her family, then sacrificed herself to save them. The pain of losing an ally was heavy, but it also fueled his resolve. That stranger, he would hunt him down, from Mexico to wherever he had to go. Jake woke up and whispered, "Brother." "What are we going to do?" Ryan smiled for the first time. "We start over. But if the darkness comes back, we'll smash it." A new dawn broke, painting Chicago red like a new promise. Ryan got a call from Sophia. "My sister is safe." "Thank you." "But the chip? Who was that person?" Ryan replied. "I'll find out. You rest." He stood up, packed their bags. With Jake by his side, they left the motel and headed into the chaotic city, where Black Knight was dismantled. But a new conspiracy was emerging. Ryan vowed to protect Jake, but the darkness was still lurking. A new mission was waiting. Perhaps in Mexico City or even further, the wandering agent's battle was not yet over.